All right, hey there everyone, it's Ethan Garr, and it's time for Good Question. Great growth teams ask the right questions to challenge and inspire each other all of the time. So each week, I'm going to share one good question to help you and your team improve how you approach and drive growth in your business. So let's jump right into it. This week's good question is, what will we do next? And we're specifically asking this question in the context of testing and experimentation. What will we do next if the experiment we plan to run proves or disproves our hypothesis? It is so easy to get excited about an idea and jump right into an experiment before you've really thought through all the pieces. But the best growth teams take the time to draw up tangible test plans where they articulate a sharply considered hypothesis, set expectations for impact, identify needed resources, and prepare the team for the effort at hand. You don't have to write a book. In fact, I coach teams to create vision documents for their experiments that are as succinct and simple as possible. But if you want to get it right, you got to write it down. What I've learned is that when growth teams take the time at this point in the process, before they run the experiment, to think through and lay out what will we do next, it leads to better outcomes. Now let's talk about why. Growth is all about momentum. We start by identifying high leverage areas of our business, then turn ideas into experiments so that we can make impact in those areas. Each experiment provides a learning to help us power decisions about what experiments to run next. The better we get at running experiments at a high velocity, the faster we can learn and grow. The challenge is actually to keep up with our own pace. When you're trying to move fast and have a backlog of ideas, it's easy to look at an optimizely result, for example, and declare a victory or a loss without really doing the thorough analysis or without documenting the learnings. The mistake in high-tempo testing, therefore, is in getting the results, but not truly turning them into the learnings that power the next cycle of experimentation. This is a good question to ask to make it easier on you and your team to accelerate the test-learn flywheel. Thinking through what's next helps everyone see the bigger picture. They can see how the results of one test will be used to fuel the next, and how together a series of experiments drives progress towards a greater objective. It's one more tool to help your team align on impact and see how their individual efforts work to propel the company forward. And documenting what we'll do next, ahead of implementation, codifies the plan to ensure that each learning is captured. If we disprove this hypothesis, we'll document the learning and we'll pivot. If we prove the hypothesis, we'll deploy the changes across our full audience and double down with other experiments. So ask this question before you run your experiments so that your roadmap is guided by your learnings. This way, your path towards the North Star allows each test result to help guide the way. And ask this question to inform better decision-making so you're not just jumping to the next experiment because it's there in your backlog, but because it's the right test to drive impact. And finally, ask this question so that every experiment yields value, even the ones that aren't wins. Now again, I'm an advocate, if not a maniac, for moving fast and not being afraid to make mistakes. I just don't like making the same mistakes twice. So yes, this may be one more step in your test planning process, but if you get it right, it should actually speed things up later on. Benjamin Franklin wrote, "By failing to prepare, you're preparing to fail." So I think taking the time to ask and answer this question is actually time really well spent. This question can help your team power growth. Challenging each other to think through what's next before you implement your experiments forces you to think more broadly about each initiative, and hopefully it'll help your team feel less anxious about managing the roadmap. And ultimately, taking a moment to think through your next move helps you keep the pedal down on growth all of the time. Well, look, we like to keep these things short, and that's all the time we've got. So thanks everyone for tuning in. I am Ethan Garr, and I'll be back again next week with another episode of Good Question. Hope you've enjoyed it, and if you did, please follow me on LinkedIn. I love sharing actionable insights to help you and your team accelerate growth. See you next week.